Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's my pleasure to call the State Board of Education full board meeting to order. Normally at this time, we like to do the Pledge of Allegiance, so I don't know that my vice chair is with us virtually. Dr. Woodall? I tell you what, I'm going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Will you please stand? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands,
one
nation, under God,
liberty,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, just to remind the board members, particularly with mask on, that you speak clearly into the microphone so that we can be heard. Again, this is just important that the minutes get transcribed properly. Before I start, Ms. Chapman, I want to thank you for chairing the board licensure committee this morning. And Ms. Howard, I want to thank you for chairing the Policy and Legislative Committee this morning in my absence. Okay, the first item is the approval of the State Board of Education minutes for July 14th. Is there any objection to approving those minutes as presented? Hearing none, those minutes are approved by unanimous consent. Next item is the approval of the agenda for this meeting, August 11th. Is there any objection to approving the agenda?
Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Boutson.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding anything you're saying, and apparently we just approved something. I don't know what we approved or if we approved.
We approved the minutes from the previous meeting.
Okay, now I heard that.
Okay, I'll do better. And now we're approving the agenda. Is there any objection to approving the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is approved by unanimous consent. The next is the recognition of any visitors, including news media. Do we have any news media with us today? I know we have one visitor, and that's Brian Butler, Campbell Consulting Group. Brian, welcome. We're glad you're here. Okay, next is the State Board Chair report, and the only remark I want to make is that I just want to thank the superintendent and the staff of the State Department of Education, along with the staffs of our school districts throughout the state. They've been putting in yeoman's work, probably a lot of work that turns out to be 24/7 in lots of cases, to be able to come up with plans to safely bring our children back to school. And I can't imagine what everybody has gone through to get us to this point. So I just want to acknowledge that, Madam Superintendent, and to do the same for your staff, because I know you put a lot of time in to look at each one of those applications for those districts to get them to the point where you could approve them and get our children safely back to school. So thank you. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our state superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Boutson, can you hear me okay?
About a C-. I can hear
Okay.
some of what you're saying, but
All right,
some of it's
I'll take my mask off then. Is that better?
that's better.
Okay, wonderful. It's great to
Yes,
see everybody.
Before you start, ma'am, I think if some of our virtual attendants have their microphones open and we're getting a lot of background noise that's overriding what the speakers in the room are trying to say. So if everyone not speaking can mute, that would probably help us all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walters. I'm hearing that kind of scratchy noise too, so if you would mute your microphones if you're on virtual, that would be helpful. Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. It has been a busy few weeks since we were together last. We had a call last Thursday with all of the district superintendents, and my takeaway from that meeting, which went very well, was it was the first meeting since mid-March, that I felt like there was more calm. There was more focus, and I didn't sense as much anxiety as I had and frustration. And I think the difference is that we are to a place now where folks, while we still have a lot of uncertainty, at least we do have a focus now. We're getting back in that mode of trying to get back to school, whether it's virtually or face-to-face or a hybrid version, but everyone has their plan ready, and we're working on implementing that plan, and that's what educators do so well. So it was a great call, and I'm proud to say that we have now approved all of our plans. We will be reevaluating those plans, particularly those districts that are going back all virtual, and we're asking them to work with us and to look at the numbers every 2 weeks, the trending data that comes from DHEC, and that is one indicator. It's probably the most used indicator that we use to decide changes, and that all of our districts would be working toward moving to some type of face-to-face model as soon as possible. Every 2 weeks, we'll be evaluating that. So I'm excited about where we are, and I'll be happy to answer questions later. But first, we need some happy, joyous news. And we do have that today in a person that we're all so proud of, and that is our 2021 South Carolina State Teacher of the Year. Sarah Schumacher-Gams says a love of teaching and learning began with her parents, who are both retired educators from Chesterfield County, South Carolina. Growing up with school as her second home, teaching was always her dream career. And she has become a teacher. I'm going to ask Sarah to tell you more about herself when she comes forward, but just a few things. She has been serving most recently as an English teacher and English department chair at Spring Hill High School in Lexington, Richland School District 5. She has taught internationally. She travels the world and has a love of travel. She has led education tours for students to many countries. She's been the keynote speaker for Education First in Paris, France. To share her love of reading with students and promote parental involvement, Sarah created the Community Book Club, which has met monthly after school to discuss a student-selected book from the South Carolina Junior and Young Adult Book Award list. She earned her national board certification in 2007 and has recently been recertified. She serves, Dr. West, at Columbia College as an adjunct professor. She's taught young adult literature, English methods, and APEC Model 3, a graduate program for teacher certification. She's presented all over the country and is well respected in her field. She has a beautiful family, a number of teachers, principals in her family, and she loves reading, golf, and traveling with her husband, Matt, and their precious 8-year-old son, Jake. We had an extraordinary visit because, we weren't able to do the gala, but we surprised Sarah at her home, and right before she comes up, I want you to take a look at this video as to how we announced to her that she was our new South Carolina Teacher of the Year. Come on, Christina. Surprise! Everybody say surprise. Well, hello everyone. We're here in Lexington, Richland School District 5 with a wonderful event. I'm at Sarah Gam's house, and we have just announced that she is the 2021 South Carolina State Teacher of the Year. Sarah, we're so thrilled for you. It was great. I felt like Publishers Clearinghouse knocking on your door and ringing the doorbell. Congratulations, and just tell us kind of what you're feeling right now.
I'm overwhelmed with joy and pride and happiness to represent the great state of South Carolina and all the wonderful public educators and educators across the state.
We're so happy to have you representing us all, and you know that Sarah will serve as an ambassador for all teachers during the next school year, traveling all over the state in this beautiful BMW presented by BMW up in Greenville. So that's exciting.
Yes.
We just presented her with a $25,000 check from the people of South Carolina for her to spend as she chooses. I'm always interested in how and why you became a teacher. Could you talk about that just a little bit?
I have always loved school. I went to Chesterfield School District and Chesterfield High School, Middle School, and Elementary, and I loved everything about school. And I loved especially that it was the center of our community, from the homecoming parades to the yearbook to our businesses coming together to help us with the newspaper. I always felt part of something larger. And I think that our schools are the center of our communities, and I wanted to be a part of that center. So when I went to USC, I decided to become a teacher because I just couldn't think of a better way to spend my life and teaching them everything that I know about English, but more importantly, letting them teach me about what their passions are and their interests and their talents, and letting literacy filter into what they want to do with their lives. And that is just a great gift for me because I love what I do every day and it's a lot of fun. And I hope my students are having as much fun as I am when we're in the classroom together.
That is fantastic. Well, you can see, as creative as she is, and being able to monitor and adjust, be flexible, but to personalize instruction for students, that's one of the great qualities of a great teacher. We're so proud of you. We look forward to this next year working closely with you. And a special thank you to all the teachers in South Carolina for everything you're doing to meet the needs of our students. Congratulations, Sarah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, and please welcome our State Teacher of the Year, Sarah Gams.
Y'all gonna make me cry. I'm so excited to be here today. Thank you so much for having me. This is my second ever speaking engagement as State Teacher of the Year 2021, so I'm not nervous at all. But normally I would talk without prompting, without speech, but I know we have limited time together, and I just prepared some remarks, and I'm going to kind of talk through with you today. Superintendent Spearman, distinguished members of the board, it is an honor for me to speak with you today. I would like to take this time to recognize that also the 2021 Honor Roll teachers for the incredible talent, expertise, and passion they demonstrate as leaders in this education profession. Sean Norris, Richland 1, Tanya Peckman, Sumter, Ashley Bennett, Woodruff, and Richard Whitmore, York. My dad always told me that we should take what we admire in others and make it a part of who we are. So I would also like to thank my principal, Dr. Michael Lofton, for his progressive vision, my superintendent, Dr. Christina Melton, for her thoughtful intentionality, and my Lexington Richland 5 colleagues, and all of the wonderful teachers I've collaborated with throughout the years. And I have to shout out the high school English department over at Spring Hill and Columbia College Qualis. Woo! But my district's investment, most importantly, my district's investment in me as a professional, by sending me to state and national conferences, by allowing me the freedom to try innovative ideas, by funding my diverse and our school's diverse classroom libraries, has helped me serve as a teacher to my students. I am absolutely living proof that investing in teachers is investing in our students and in the quality of their education. So just a little about me. Superintendent Spearman told you most of it, but I have taught English for 17 years, 10 at Chapin Middle School, 7 at Spring Hill High. I've taught everything from 7th grade co-taught to 12th grade AP Literature and Composition. And just 3 years ago, I started at Columbia College with Methods in English Education, Young Adult Literature, and Module 3, which provides an alternative pathway to teacher certification for professionals who are already in the field and they're already serving in schools. And I have loved and I have grown from every single teaching experience. I also, as Superintendent Spearman said, come from a family of educators. My mom actually taught me English, and she was a cadet teacher at Chesterfield High School. She was also a 2003 South Carolina Honor Roll teacher. And my dad taught math and social studies at Chesterfield Middle School. And my husband is principal at River Springs Elementary in Lexington 5, where our son Jake is currently going into 3rd grade. And my sister and brother-in-law are also in my district, so I get it honest. So obviously, I absolutely believe that education is the most beautiful profession. I find great joy in going to work every day. Education is truly intellectually stimulating. It's creative work that challenges all educators on a daily basis to provide the best instruction possible for our students. And day after day, year after year, teachers have continued to find innovative and effective ways to help our students overcome obstacles to learning. And we are doing this especially now, this year, as we continue to put the safety of our students, their families, our educators, and most importantly, our communities at the forefront of all our instructional decisions. In this room alone, our State Board of Education has countless years of rich and varied educational experience and expertise in school safety, administration, classroom teaching, curriculum coaching, educational foundations, and reading interventions. Combined with the expertise of business leaders and executives and parents, all of us here represent the very best of what a true collaboration of stakeholders in education can be. And together, with the input of the classroom teachers and school administrators across South Carolina, we can and we are reimagining education. Our lives have been disrupted by COVID-19, and that means our thinking about education has been disrupted. And that can be a great thing. We have learned so much. COVID-19 has brought into sharp focus the very real struggles that many of our students face with access to technology and internet, with homelessness, with poverty. And most of the time, the school building can protect our children from their circumstances for at least 8 hours a day. And when school closed in March, none of us could predict how long we would be unable to return to a physical classroom. I worried about my students that I could no longer see. And I've changed the names for privacy, but these are true stories. Julie was living in adverse conditions with no internet, no gas for their family car, and a sister who was immune compromised. Though we mailed her work packet to her, she could not drive to the school to turn in her packet. I was on the phone weekly with Don's mother, who was worried about her son following behind. I reached out to Elizabeth, Michaela, and Jacob, all of whom had not turned in assignments, to find out that they were taking care of younger siblings at home while their parents worked, or taking on full-time jobs at grocery stores to help supplement lost income. Sam didn't come out of her house for a month in fear of contracting the virus from others and exposing her grandmother with whom she lived. And my heart was breaking, because in that moment, academic work was not the most important thing. Academic work was secondary to physical safety and the social-emotional trauma that our students faced. I took all of these stories from my own students and more to our district committees as we started to make decisions in this uncharted educational situation we find ourselves in. And we all agreed to follow the very sound leadership of Superintendent Spearman and our State Board of Education, and we adopted a philosophy inspired by the Hippocratic Oath: first, do no harm. As educators, we would not allow a global pandemic that threw all of us into this unprecedented situation to damage our students' opportunity to learn, their GPA, or their academic standing. And as educators, we decided together to focus on supporting our students' education by being present, by presenting new content with e-learning, Google Meet, and Zoom. And as educators, we watched our brave students overcome so many adversities. Julie and her mother took advantage of the free internet service offered to those families in need, and Julie started being able to participate in online Google Meet in late April. Dom, my struggling reader, did all of his assignments because he knew his mother and I were in constant communication and that we were proud members of Team Dom, and that's what we called ourselves. And Elizabeth, Michaela, and Jacob, they all passed their online AP exams. Our students were extraordinary. They're extraordinary because our district policy sought out and followed the advice and input of teachers, and they listened when we discussed our professional successes and maybe more importantly, our failures. And then they found ways to support us. And we as teachers also learned to teach in new ways. Last spring was not easy for any of us as educators, but the crisis did disrupt our thinking. And it is allowing us now to take all we've learned last spring into this new school year. And now we have to do something that is even harder. We have to ask ourselves, not how do we return to normal, but rather how can we use what we've learned, what we understand about the world right now to move forward. We must ask ourselves, what can we change about education to help our students be successful in this new online hybrid environment? We can continue to build on what we know and what we've learned about trauma-informed instruction, virtual schooling, and even Zoom fatigue. And it is a thing. It is a thing.
It is.
To move forward. And once again, academics do have to come secondary to our students' social, emotional needs and their physical health. And we must continue to keep our priorities in order, to keep our students' physical and emotional health at the forefront of all policy decisions, which I do believe we are doing, just like we did last March through May. This year, I really look forward to working with Sarah, collaborating with educators across our state, advocating for students and our profession as we reimagine education together. We will find ways to inspire and instruct our students, and we will find ways to navigate these uncharted waters safely. But I know for sure that as long as we work together, we are the right people, and this is the right time to do it. Thank you.
Here, here. Sarah, thank you. I'm going to give the board members an opportunity in case they might have a question for you.
Sure, let me start off by saying, when I first met you, I didn't know you were from Chesterfield.
Yes.
All right.
Rams, go Rams.
Yeah. So I worked in Chesterfield County for 8 years. Actually, I was assistant superintendent in Chesterfield, and who was principal when you were there at Chesterfield High School?
What year? I graduated in 1998.
Who was the principal? It wasn't Scott Racken, was it?
Well, he was the assistant principal then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know they're proud. And you know, Christina Melton is from Chesterfield, so Christina is recruiting all the Chesterfield election in 5, I see. Yeah.
We kind of stick together. We just move.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Well, I just want to say
Dr. West.
congratulations.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Ms. Chapman.
Congratulations. Chesterfield County is very proud. I know your mom and dad both. I remember, yes. So great. Congratulations. And thank you so much. You
Thank you
are
so
definitely
much.
an inspiration.
I appreciate that. I'm overwhelmed and humbled every day, but happy.
Dr. West?
Well, Sarah, I just want to add, we are fortunate not only that you're teaching the students of South Carolina, but also helping prepare future educators, which will only, increase the impact that you as a teacher will have. So just very, very proud of you, proud of the relationship with the college, and the state could not have chosen a better representative for us for this year. So
Thank
congratulations.
you so much.
Anybody
Y'all really
else?
are going to make me cry.
Well, Kathy, as I was listening to your remarks, I'm a banker, so I'm a business guy, but a lot of what you were saying is also applicable to business, because I'm reminded of what Winston Churchill said, don't waste a good crisis. And I think both educators and business people and community people and church people are all learning some lessons from this. And I think what's going to be interesting that'll come out of it is we'll probably have new ways of approaching how we do business, maybe even how we do church, and certainly how we do school. So I appreciate your forward thinking.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Hear, hear. Molly, do you have anything else for us today?
I'll be present to answer questions as we move through the agenda. I'm sure that there will be some, but that concludes my report.
Well, let's go ahead and do that. Are there any questions for the superintendent relative to her report or relative to what's going on in the districts with the plans and safety and so on and so forth?
Yeah, Superintendent Spearman, and this may not be the right question, but I read last night where the governor wants data reported relative to COVID infection per school. Am I correct? Kind of give me some insight into that. I mean, what exactly are we seeking?
Well,
to do
I'm
there?
seeking insight on that.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, all right.
I have a call to DHEC to ask them. I have not, I was unaware that that request was coming. I think in an effort to keep the public informed, obviously, it is a good idea for us to report when there are positive cases in schools. I don't understand why on a daily basis. I think that's going to be difficult to do, and I think it might also be difficult to cover the privacy of folks if that's the case, but I'm sure DHEC is looking at all of that now. I do think if K-12 schools are asked to do that, I think it would be wise to ask other schools, all independent and private parochial schools, to report as well, including colleges and technical schools as well. And I'm not sure that that's all in the request, but I am checking into that now. But thank you. I have some concerns as well.
Other questions?
I don't know whether this is a question I should ask you later or we can do it now. But because of the situation in like the Allendale County where there's no school board, the question was posed on me, how did the superintendent make her decision, or was there a committee, and who was on the committee? Was a question I could not answer, but I'm asking you to see if you can help me.
Right. We work, since there is no active board in Allendale or Williamsburg or Timmonsville now, I work very closely, as does our staff, with those superintendents to make the decisions on operations. So it was done with talking with us. Now, I believe she did have some input from community folks as the plan was made, but we approved the plan here in this building and made recommendations to her.
Other questions?
This isn't a question, but, one comment I'd like to make is we're going to have to get away from treating COVID-19 as if it's something to be ashamed of and associating with some kind of stigma. And I think that causes people not to be forthright about even their infection. And so, anything that you can do at the governor's office or anyone, that's why I was particularly concerned about this reporting numbers, is because I don't want people to feel as if this is something I should be ashamed of. I want faculty and staff and students, everybody, to be very forthcoming about if you are infected, because it can happen to anyone. It can happen to me or my wife or my kids or anyone. It doesn't mean that you've done anything wrong, anything to be ashamed of, or we need to treat you as if you're some kind of leper or something, all right? And so I am a little concerned about that, because it appears to be, it appears to have a stigma associated with it. And I don't want us to do anything that exacerbates that issue.
Yes, and I agree with you. And I did have the question yesterday, and I get asked this often, how are we going to work with families and communities if there are positive cases in schools? And there will be as we come back. We cannot guarantee 100% safety, nor do we guarantee that if someone becomes infected that they got it at school. It could have been from a family reunion and come to school. But we have been working with DHEC for template letters to assist districts in how they should notify folks, and the protocols on all of the questions that I get asked. What if a student, what if a family member, all of those are outlined in our Accelerate Ed document as to how districts should handle that, who needs to be quarantined, what processes should go in place on all those different scenarios. So if anyone has any questions about how it's going to work, they should look at our Accelerate Ed document. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is that it?
We, the proviso this morning that we heard for Clarendon County, so I read that to mean that Clarendon 1 and Clarendon 3 have merged into one system?
They are in the process of doing
of
that.
it.
Local legislation has been introduced and passed, and a new board has been appointed, and they're calling it the Clarendon 4 School District, to oversee operations. There is some discussion going on right now about how They need to be sharing even more services as we move into this year, and so we're having some meetings about that. But the full consolidation should be finished for the 21-22 school year. It's when it's official.
And I think
Dr.
I got
West?
one more question.
Mr. Chairman.
Hang on, Mr. Bootson.
Okay.
I'm not, I know we can't have like a formal meeting, but because a lot of times I hear like there are presentations are done.
Ms. Smith,
But-
you've really got to get really close to
I
that
hear like
microphone.
presentations
Thank you.
are done, but I don't see where there's like a question and answer if parents or anyone have concern. Is there any way we can kind of schedule something, or there's a way that if, so that they can get some answers to their questions? Because just to hear a presentation, but I still got some concern. Who do I go to? What do I say? How can I ask my questions?
Are you speaking about in Allendale County
I'm
or just
speaking
all over the
just
state of South
generally
Carolina?
all over, because a lot of times I hear the presentations and parents hear it, and then they're like, then they come with questions, and
Sure.
who's supposed to answer these questions? How they're supposed to get these answers that they have concern about?
Sure. Well, I have been trying to do as many public activities, question on TV stations and where folks call in questions. We're doing something Thursday afternoon with PSTA and SCEA for teachers to ask me questions. And I would just tell you, if you get a question and you're not sure of the answer, send it to us, and we'll take care of that. We have folks who are calling in. Our phone lines have been hot and heavy with our ombudsman, Wanda Davis, who answers phone calls every day here at the department for parents. So, or they can email me to our EdSoup account, and we answer those. So there are mechanisms in place for answers to be given, but if you as a state board member get a question that you don't know, I would say direct them to my email or to our ombudsman telephone line.
Okay. And I got one more, then I'll be finished. I know we are doing virtual, but then I also know there are some other online schools there. How are our parents supposed to, if they were to participate in this and not as with the school district, how would that affect? Because I'm faced with that too. I don't know.
So how are students going to be engaged if they,
Right, if they
they're
choose an
virtual?
online one.
Okay, if they choose online. Well, first of all, let me say this. The online program that's going to be offered as school is beginning now is going to be is more robust and much higher expectations and engagement required than what happened in March. While some may have had really strong programs, we counted everybody present from March 13th, I think it was, till the end of school. That's not going to happen. Now, in order to be counted present, the student has got to sign in online, has to turn in assignments, and there will be a daily attendance taken just like it is done if someone is sitting in the classroom. So that was one thing that we looked at in the plan programs. What are your expectations for students, and how are you going to engage students? So that would be the first thing that I would say, and I know these superintendents would verify that the expectations are very high. We are working with the Office of Regulatory Staff, another state agency now, to give out hotspots which have been purchased by the state through CARES Act funding to give out to families who need some extra support to boost their internet. And I think we're getting that feedback again. You might need to mute your microphone. We're doing that. We're also paying. If families can't afford for internet service, the state is paying for that through CARES Act funding. So there are a number of programs, activities going on to support students and their families with virtual, and some of these superintendents may have more to add to that. But I would just say that the expectations are much higher, and attendance will be taken every day in order to be counted present. A virtual student is going to have to be engaged online with his teacher.
Dr. West.
Yes, and Mine's a little different. It's about money, which I know
Okay.
is a great topic. After the governor's decision for reallocation of the $32 million, I had a conversation with the representatives and the senators in Kershaw and in Richland County. And the question was, or the statement was made that there was a concern that they believe districts already had enough money, so it was only fair, to kind of spread that. So I guess my question would be, how is the conversation being had with the legislative body about available funds, how much has been used, how much is still available to districts? And I guess my colleagues at our superintendents might be able to, to comment, but are we at a place where our schools have what they need? And if there are additional funds that are yet to be utilized, kind of what is the status of that?
And that's a great question. And I will say that there has been quite a large amount of funding made available to K-12 schools for reimbursement for anything COVID-19 impact. First of all, the U.S. Department of Education sent $212 million, so $194 million of that goes directly out to school districts. They have 2 years to spend it, a very broad array of things that they can use, almost anything that they can relate back to COVID-19. As of yesterday, 17 million of that has been drawn down. So still a lot to be drawn down. We're asking the districts to turn in their plans. I cannot tell them how to spend that money. They draw it down, but remember, they have 2 years, so they're beginning to draw that down. Then the CARES Act funding, the $2 billion, there was about $12 million of that was allocated by the legislature for schools to use. And we have been assisting them. That is paying for the summer reading camp, math camp. It's paying for the 5 extra days at school districts. We call them LEAP days. And Katie Nilgis is making a report tomorrow to the Senate Reopening Committee on where we are. Quite honestly, the number of students we anticipated and had identified about around 25,000 students who should be coming to the summer reading camp. We've got much less than that. Then there looked like there would be about 10,000. The number is much smaller than that as to the students who are attending face-to-face in those summer reading camps. So there's going to be some allocation money available there. We will be working with districts to make sure that it's spent on things that is appropriate. I'm recommending tutors to work directly with students who are behind in kindergarten through 3rd grade in reading and math, and other activities that would be appropriate for those students. The LEAP days, we believe there might be some of that funding available as well. So we'll be working with the legislature and with districts, so they will have some additional funding there to use, as well as just in the last 2 weeks, Governor McMaster said, if these districts need anything to get ready to open, let us know. So we did, and working with Elsie Montgomery here, we did extensive surveys with the districts and telephone calls, making sure that is there anything you need, more masks, more plexiglass. So we placed an order last week, and it is being paid completely through CARES Act funding. The districts will not be charged, and it was around $10 million. So I would say that as we start school, the masks, the disinfectant, all those things, we bought equipment, we're cleaning the buses through the agency. All of those things that will make schools a safe environment have been purchased and are either already arrived or on the way, and that is being paid for with CARES Act funding out of one pot or the other. I have not heard a single superintendent say we cannot open because we don't have the material we need. So I believe they're ready. Now, I think it is expensive, and I think as we move forward, we're going to probably need some more support as we go through this, but there is funding out there that is available either for expenditures or reimbursement.
So Dr. West, I guess the way I would respond to that, pardon me, excuse me.
Go ahead.
Yeah. The way I would respond to that is to say, we're not even sure what we'll need eventually. One conversation that we've had is the state is funding hotspots up through December. That makes the assumption that we will be in a place that hotspots are no longer needed. And so what happens after December, if we are still in a place where virtual learning, we may have to even expand that. How is that going to be funded? Is the state going to provide additional funding? Will we have to use CARES Act funding? So there's still lots of unknowns, even though we may have enough to start in terms of whether we have enough to continue. That remains to be seen. There's still some unknowns out there. Excuse me, Chair, I apologize. Yeah.
And Mr. Chair, thank you, Dr. Green. That's accurate. And I will also say the General Assembly has asked us to tell them what kind of things, additional things we can predict that will be needed that might be paid for with regular state funding. So we will be doing that as they come back in September. Different committees are meeting and we're making reports to them now, but there's a lot of guessing.
And I appreciate that. And I think, my conversations with the representative actually in question, voicing my concern about opening that door for the use of the federal dollars in private school settings. That's me personally. The response I received was that there might be folks within the legislature that believed we already had what we needed. So as you're going forward, making those presentations like to the school opening committee tomorrow, just to make sure that the voices of, as I know you do, but I was not aware of the 2-year time frame, so that at least does help in providing a response to, well, only X number of dollars have been used when you have $212 million. So I appreciate that information.
Mr. Boutson.
Thank you. Two quick questions. One is, will this meeting, the recording of this meeting, be posted somewhere, hopefully in a format that is more easily understood than this one has been so far? I'm talking about the quality of the sound and the language. That's question one.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Question number 2, have we found all of our missing children?
Thank you. We are in a much better place. All of the names of the children, and Katie Nilgis again, and I both have worked individually with superintendents, asking them to go beyond the call of duty in trying to find and working with their local law enforcement, but all of the names of the children, and I think we got that down to a little over 1,000. Katie, where are you? 3,100 names were sent to the Department of Social Services, and they are in the process and have already identified some of those students were actually the ones that they work with and have caseworkers, and they are working with the additional. And maybe, if I may, Mr. Chair, have Katie Neal just come and just give a more detailed report, because she's been working on this. This is not, and if I may say too, this work is one that the agency has been asked to do, which we very willingly have done, but it's a different requirement, and asking districts to turn names over to DSS has, it's been a different situation for districts, but they have complied, and I think we've heard from all districts. So, Katie.
Ms. Nilgis?
As far the last report that we received was it was August 4th. I think that was last Tuesday. Sorry, is that better? So the last report we received from DSS, they had 152 open cases of the names that we had submitted, which was around 3,100. And then they are working with their local DSS offices and local law enforcement to make sure that the remainder of those, about a little under 3,000, are able to be located, whether that means they've moved or whether that means they just were unengaged. Hopefully, that was.
Thank you, Katie.
Okay. Madam Superintendent?
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Counselor? Nothing from the parliamentarian. Thank you. This now brings us to public comment, and my friend Kathy Manus from the Palmetto State Teachers Association is with us. And Kathy, you know the drill. You have 5 minutes. We won't ask you any questions, and so welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the State Board of Education. First, I'd like to say thank you. Thank you for what you do for the children, for the teachers, and the families in South Carolina. And Superintendent Spearman, you have had a hard job since we left in March. But I will tell you, I am very proud of how you have represented our state. So thank you. I sent a letter along with the SCEA, and Sherry East hope signed up to speak after I finish. And I hope everyone got the letter where we sent and have some concerns about our teachers and going back face to face. We are hearing from our teachers that they want nothing more than to be in that classroom, but they need to make sure that it's safe. Many of our teachers have family members who have that they have to take care of that are in the high-risk category. We do have some teachers who have their own health concerns, and they are concerned about going back face-to-face. While our organizations, Palmetto State Teachers Association and the SCEA, we do not encourage our educators to break their contracts. That is not something that we want to happen, but we understand in these situations, sometimes it has to happen. We get calls daily from teachers who say, I just can't go back. My health will not allow me to go back. And they need to break their contracts. So what we are asking of the State Board of Education is that if these teachers should not be penalized for having to make the impossible decision that requires them to choose between their health and their livelihood. And we are asking that the State Board of Education refrain from issuing suspensions to educators who breach their contracts for COVID-19 related issues. You know, like I said, I've been getting calls. I know Sherry's been getting calls, and they break my heart. But I want to tell you a story of one that really tore it apart. Brand new teacher, just graduated from college, so excited about being a teacher, a teaching fellow, so we know she's one of the best of the best. Signed her contract in December. She got a job before she even started student teaching. She was ready to go. This young lady has 3 underlying health conditions that makes it very difficult for her to go into that classroom. And she was so upset. You know, what do I need to do? I haven't heard from my district. I need to resign. Luckily, her district did release her from her contract because of the health conditions. But we're asking, we know that when teachers do not go to work, that they have breached that contract. Those come before you as the State Board of Education. We are asking that for these teachers in this situation, that their certificates not be suspended because they breached their contract for COVID-related issues. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Kathy, thank you. Ms. East did not sign up for public comment. Would you like to make a public comment?
I should have known better. I apologize. Thank you for allowing me to
We're
speak.
very forgiving.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very good. Thank you, Chairman and the board, for allowing me to speak, and thank you to Molly for the Accelerate Ed to allow Kathy and I to have a representative on the Accelerate Ed task force. And some of our colleagues have described it as emergency deployment teaching. I think one of the last folks said that. And so what we did in the spring will not be what happens when we reopen school. But we have a survey that we did. The PSTA, the SCA, and the State Department of Ed partnered with all 4 SC and the University of South Carolina Research Department to do an intensive survey. It went out in June to all 50,000 of our teachers, certified teachers only, and we had 12,000 folks respond, and we have an in-depth report available to you, which is not what I'm going to do today. I'm going to just give you the 3-page highlights and summaries and talk about, what we found out, which I think we kind of already knew pre-COVID, still existed during COVID, and unfortunately will probably exist after COVID.
Ms.
unless-
East, just a reminder, you have 4 minutes left.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Of this report, the 5 themes are here, the 7 important facts. One major takeaway was that every issue was raised. Teachers who taught in the high poverty and rural schools and those who worked with elementary with disabilities, English language learners faced more challenges than their counterparts. I think that's true pre-COVID, and it's faced, right in our face during COVID. The last thing at the end were the recommendations, which you've heard, and everything's revolving around this. Eliminate the technology divide, accelerate learning management systems, invest in professional learning networks for and by teachers, rethink the role as teachers as leader, and find and support cross-sector collaboration to serve the whole child. This research team is available to do an in-depth presentation, and they have some beautiful slides and graphs if you are a data junkie. So please contact Barnett Berry at USC if you would like an in-depth report, and we can actually send you the links to these where you can read through all of the data. So that is my short and highlight of this report available to you.
Ms. East, thank
That's it.
you.
Thanks.
Okay, we are now going to move into the State Board items, and the first is the Policy and Legislative Committee met this morning. Ms. Howard, I believe you chaired that committee. Hello?
Did Mr. Fox sign up for public comment? Did Mr. Fox? He did. He did. Mr. Fox signed
I
up.
was told he's not here.
No, he is here. He had to wait outside.
Well, then,
We only have enough room for these people. Nobody left. As soon as somebody left, we were going to let them in.
okay, well then, with Mr. Fox?
I just saw him leave and assumed he.
Oh, okay. Mr. Fox, you have 5 minutes.
I'm here to make a direct request to the State Board for a public hearing because Deputy Superintendent Hazelwood threatened me with arrest for making a request for a hearing almost 2 years ago. I fit the criteria. The State Department has published 2 failures at the annual contract level on my public transcript. The State Department mandated Marlborough County to demote me from continuing contract status to annual 1 diagnostic contract status as a certified teacher for my 5th year. The State Department also demoted me again a second time to the annual 1 diagnostic contract status as a 9th year educator, and I was certified both times, and I did not meet the criteria for those demotions. I had already been certified, and I already passed annual 2 twice. Deputy Superintendent Hazelwood also banned me from communicating with the State Department, which is why I'm here in person, and I've been here several times before. E. Scott Winburn threatened me with signed affidavits from lawyers that don't represent me and representatives from Lexington 4, and the Office of Educator Effectiveness has also published 9 out of the 12 contracts that I've signed are all forged under contracts that I was not offered or they were revised. And my request is in compliance with the ADEPT statute. It's my understanding that you can only have 4 annual contracts. That second mandate to the annual 1 exceeded the 4 allowed by law, and I've already served 2 years of the automatic suspension, and I've never been granted a hearing. And I just want to know, do all educators get this treatment? Do only African-American teachers get threatened with arrest for making a request? Like, I just want to know the criteria for constantly demoting me to a contract level that I don't fit the criteria for, and then threatening me with arrest, threatening me with signed affidavits when I'm actually complying with the laws, and I've complied with every mandate that the State Department has issued for my employment.
Thank you, Mr. Fox.
Also want to say that security guard threw that threat of arrest at my feet last year. He asked me if I was gay, and he shared comments and activity from my Facebook page, all because, and then he followed me outside the building for no reason. I wasn't bothering anybody, and I already talked to Corporal Spivey or somebody from Protective Services, and I've already talked with Leon Lott about this. And I work with police, and I work in the most challenging communities in South Carolina with police. So I don't understand the rationale for threatening me with law enforcement unless the intention was some kind of outcome similar to George Floyd or what have you.
Okay, I'm now going to move to state board items, and again, back to policy and legislative. Ms. Howard, thank you for chairing that committee this morning on my behalf.
Thank you. There were 2 items presented for approval to the Policy and Legislative Committee this morning. One of them was the proposed amendments to the State Board of Education transfers and withdrawals. That was the first reading, was presented by Ms. Beavers. That was voted on by the committee and added to the consent agenda. The second was the proposed amendment to the State Board of Education minimum standards of student conduct and disciplinary enforcement procedures to be implemented by the local school districts. This was also the first reading presented by Dr. Moore, and that was moving some terminology from level 3 to level 2 on offensive for conduct. Both items were approved and added to the consent agenda.
Thank you. You also received...
Mr. Chairman.
Just a second. You also received a report regarding waivers and...
Was that for information?
Yes.
Yes, we did receive one for information. The waiver from...
The waivers the department approved, correct?
Oh, okay, yes. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
okay.
Nobody typed me up the notes like they usually do. So we did hear information on the school district waiver request, and that was from Charleston County, and it was dealing with a high school and a center and the numbers of students per counselor and all. So that was for information. And then we also heard the Proviso 188 about the Clarendon County 2 systems
Okay.
looking at, working on merger.
So those were both information items,
Yes,
correct?
those were both
Okay, and the other items were moved to the consent agenda. Mr. Boutson.
Could you review briefly the process for taking something off the consent agenda? There's
Counselor?
a timing issue, as I recall.
Counselor?
Yes, at this time, if you want to remove something, you do it now and ask that it be removed from the consent agenda. You will take up the consent agenda, the items on the consent agenda, and then you will take up that one item to be heard on it.
Can we have a short discussion that may save us some time?
About,
those first 2 items on the policy and legislative, the action items. I know I'm just one person, but I'm okay with them being on the consent agenda if they are on the consent agenda as a first reading only, and that they will get second reading.
yeah, that is how the board deals with regulations. So second reading is a public hearing. So it will be before P&L, policy and legislative, public hearing, but it does not go on the consent agenda at the second reading. It is a public hearing, and then the entire board takes up the second reading regulation. Because in the interim, Ms. Beaver and Dr. Moore will take comments from the public, and they may come to you with new versions of these regulations based on public comment. We will now move into public comment on these.
And I think, if I'm correct, that public comment is scheduled for October 13th.
That is correct.
Okay.
That's the public hearing, but they'll begin taking public comment from the moment that this first reading is approved. It goes out to their associations, it goes out to the districts, to all the stakeholders requesting public comment. And
believe that-
informing them about public
That's
hearing.
wonderful. I'm just recalling that in the not too distant past, I think you have told us that if an item passed first reading with 2/3 of the vote, that we didn't have to have a second reading.
That is
And
only your rules of governance. That cannot be a regulation. A state regulation is two different things. Your rules of governance permit a 2/3 vote and no second reading on rules of governance, not regulations.
Not regulations. Does
Not
that answer your
regs.
question, Mr. Bootson?
Yeah, for the moment. I think the second reading is important for all the reasons that that were just laid out. I think people need the opportunity to have second thoughts and to get input from outside and all of that. So
And
that's fine. I'm good. I'm happy. Thank you.
And that will happen. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Howard. Next, we're going to move to Educator Professions Committee. Ms. Pearson.
Okay, Education Profession Committee had 2 action items, EP 01, Spring 2020. Oh, let me get my glasses. Spring 2020 accreditation decision, Coastal Carolina University, Morris College, Newberry College, and Winthrop University. We also had EP 02, request for educator preparation provider for out-of-state student teacher placement, Anderson University. We had 1 information item, notification of changes to education preparation program. All these were approved and placed on consent agenda.
They were approved by the committee.
Right, by the committee.
Well, I think they're before I don't see them on the, they are on the consent agenda. I'm sorry. 0102 are on the consent agenda. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Pearson. Standards, learning, and accountability. Did you chair that one also, Ms. Pearson?
No, I did not. No.
That's mine.
That's, okay, Ms. Howard.
We had a presentation this morning for adoption list to the formative assessments that school districts do, and it was presented by iReady, and they presented their findings, and the committee voted to accept and add them to the list of formative assessments, and voted to put this on the consent agenda.
Thank you.
That's all we had.
Okay, thank you very much. The next is the Educator Licensure Committee. And again, Ms. Chapman, thank you for chairing the full board. And I believe that the full board did approve that ELC committee report, so that won't require any action at this time. Although, if you would like to make a report about what the ELC did in fact do, that would be appropriate.
We dealt this morning with 6 cases, 1 initial certification, 2 public reprimands, and 3 suspensions.
Thank you. And then the full board licensure committee, just a synopsis of what they,
We dealt with 4 cases this morning for application of certification.
and you approved,
We approved 2
and
and
denied.
denied 2.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is the to approval of the consent agenda. That has been handed out to you. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Ms. Howard. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Sean. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion The motion passes. So my agenda says those, but we've already dealt with all that, haven't we? My agenda here, my talking points agenda says
On that twice.
Yeah, there's a.
says policy and legislative consent agenda items, but we've already dealt with that.
You dealt with all that.
Yes.
Could I not speak to you? Could I just look at your?
I'm looking at my
Right, you
talking,
did
I'm
last
looking at
night.
my talking points, see?
So keep going.
Yeah,
Something about health and safety.
Yeah, you got that now. That's where you are.
yeah, yeah. So that's the next thing. Okay. Thank you, Counselor. The next item is regarding the State Board of Education Health and Safety of Students policy, and I would ask Ms. Nilgis, Director of our Office of Government Affairs, to make a presentation to us. Ms. Nilgis, thank you.
Is this loud enough? No. Is this loud enough?
Yes,
I
use your
don't have-
outdoor voice.
I don't have a teacher voice, so I apologize in advance. Before you, you have the State Board of Education Health and Safety of Students policy. The policy would grant the State Superintendent of Education the express authority to take any precautionary safety measures in all South Carolina public schools and facilities which are deemed necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the students and staff. As you know, on March 15th, Governor McMaster issued an executive order directing the closure of all public schools in the state of South Carolina for students and non-essential employees beginning on March 16th. The public school facilities remain closed until the end of the 2019-2020 school year. As the 2020-2021 school year is approaching, the South Carolina Department of Education, to best protect the health and safety and welfare of the public school students and staff, we support the national and state effort to slow the spread of COVID-19 by requiring face coverings to be worn on school buses and within public school facilities. This policy is being presented to you today for approval, and you have attached on the synopsis, the face mask policy, which the superintendent provided to all districts on August the 3rd.
Thank you, Ms. Nilgis. The board chair would now entertain a motion to approve, and the approval is that the State Board of Education hereby grants the State Superintendent of Education the express authority to take any precautionary safety measures in all South Carolina public school facilities deemed necessary by the superintendent to protect the health, safety, and welfare of our students. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
I second.
Is there a second? Ms. Howard, thank you. We have a first and a second. The chair will now ask if there is any discussion.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Bootson.
I noticed that previously when emergency powers were given to the superintendent, it was done in the form of a regulation and not in the form of a policy. Is there a reason for the difference?
Counselor, Ms. Nilgis?
The regulation that went into effect back in March, that we had, the emergency regulation, dealt with a broad range of authority. It allowed the superintendent to essentially waive the regulation requirements. This would be a policy that would be in place. As you know, the emergency regulation expired after 90 days. So this would be a policy that would allow the superintendent to continue to make these decisions for the best, looking out for the best welfare of our students.
I don't see an expiration of this policy. As written, it looks to me like it could go on forever.
That is correct.
Do you know when the COVID-19 is going to go away, Mr. Bootson?
Pardon me?
Do you know when COVID-19 is going to disappear?
Probably not, but I think it's useful to sit back and review the bidding from time to time to see where we are, particularly when what this does is it effectively provides a blank check to the superintendent that if we can make it about safety of children and faculty and their welfare, there's no limit to what can be done. And I'm not trying to suggest that there's anything untoward going on here. I'm just saying that I think we have an obligation to make this process crystal clear and very very carefully defined and delineated, so at some point down the road we don't wind up in getting cross-threaded with somebody, a school district or the General Assembly, for Pete's sake, or anybody else that says we have overstepped our bounds, that we have been careless with the public trust, any of that kind of stuff. That's the only reason I asked the question.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Mr. Boutson.
Mr. Chairman, may I jump in?
Please.
Thank you.
Ms. Walters.
As you know, I've been working very closely with Superintendent Spearman on the health and safety issues, not only as part of the Accelerated Ed Task Force, but in general, because that's my job with my district. And I know she's consulted closely with me on the mask issue, for instance. And so I appreciate Mr. Boutson's comments, but I don't think this is going to be some authority that's going to be misused. And I'll ask Ms. Mill just to correct me if I'm wrong, but even though there's not a sunset provision, the board can withdraw it by this same action at any time. And if there's a real bad concern, we could have a called special meeting to do that. So it's not really a blank check. It may be a little more open-ended than Mr. Boutson likes, but I think we've still got control, oversight over what's going on.
Thank you, Mr. Walters.
That is correct.
Thank you, Ms. Nilgis. Other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We have a number of informational items. Will there be any reports?
I'm sorry, I had mine on mute. My vote was no on that last question.
Of course.
Yeah, of course.
Of course. Are we going to have any reports on these informational items, literacy updates and?
Dr. Mathis is on the phone.
Oh, he is.
He's presenting
Okay.
virtually, and then I will be introducing Kimberly Mack, Dr. Mack.
Okay, very good. Dr. Mathis, are you out there?
Mr. Brennan, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Thank you.
This month's update will veer just a little from a focus on literacy to a broader update on the support the State Department is providing districts as we begin the 2021 school year. The first is the Academic Recovery Camp, and Superintendent Spearman gave you some brief comments on that. We're currently updating our enrollment in figures in the Academic Recovery Camp. And in the earlier count, districts proposed 9,566 students would attend the Academic Recovery Camp. While counts are not final, districts have reported to date a total of 3,121 students attending face-to-face academic recovery camps. We're awaiting numbers from approximately 10 districts, so that number will go up. Lower numbers than expected, I think, resulted in the camps being canceled due to high spread rates, rating of the virus, or parents declined sending their children after indicating an intent to attend. And our updated figures later will also report the number of students who attended virtual programs. Superintendent Spearman also mentioned in her remarks about the reopening plans. A team from the department read all district plans as well as the plans from the charter schools, and all districts are offering a virtual option and a face-to-face option as safety protocols are in place. 17 districts plan to open with full face-to-face. 48 districts are opening with a hybrid model, and 16 districts are opening with a virtual start and evaluating with the South Carolina Department of Education every 2 weeks when it's safe to reopen. The department has also approved 53 district LEAP plans. And LEAP, as you know, is learning, evaluating, analyzing, preparing. It's for grades pre-K to 8. And districts are required to invite all pre-K to 8 grade students for at least one day during LEAP. And the LEAP days are to be scheduled 5 days prior to the start of school. And there are several areas, and I'll say from the information we've been getting from the district, it's there's a very robust activities going on centered around revisiting content and skills, diagnostic assessments in ELA and math, social emotional check-ins and preparation for the new school year, analyzing the data of the diagnostic assessments, review of individual education plans and accommodations, and also establishing routines and procedures. Additionally, in fulfilling Act 142, the department approved 5 assessment tools to pre-assess students during LEAP or the first 10 days of school in ELA and math, as well as a post-assessment in December of 2020. The 5 assessment tools that department approved are MAP, STAR, iReady, TE21, Houghton Mifflin Harcourt Reading and Math Inventory. The pre and post results will be provided to the department, where we will transfer this data to the Education Oversight Committee for evaluation. As we look to the new school year, I want to just highlight a few areas of support to districts that the department has planned. And as you know, beginning a school year is always a busy and hectic time for schools, but beginning school for the fall of 2020 will be significantly challenging. But with challenges comes opportunity, and the department is positioned to provide a support system that will lead to promising practices and not just simply best practices. And here's a sample of what we plan to offer. The National Institute for Excellence in Teaching, or as we call it, NIET, has developed a companion virtual instruction rubric to our South Carolina teaching rubric, which we often call our 4.0 rubric. And all South Carolina teachers are immersed in this rubric each year. The department has partnered with NIET to assist South Carolina educators in strengthening capacity in virtual instruction. So all teachers and administrators can participate in free training around these practices and this rubric that will be delivered by NIET. We're also making this available to higher ed faculty and student teachers. We introduced this Wednesday at the Instructional Leaders Roundtable and Thursday to superintendents, and to date, over 1,500 teachers and administrators have registered. And I'll be glad to send you with this report a website link that you can actually see the information about the NIET rubric. We're very proud that we received a $15 million grant from the U.S. Department of Education with the goal of improving the quality of remote instruction throughout the state. The goals of the grant are to, number one, increase availability of remote instruction and resources to students and teachers in South Carolina that lack broadband access, improve education resources specified by specific gaps by developing and curating high-quality content, increasing teacher experience and confidence and proficiency in remote instruction, and also improving the quality of communication and contact with families and teachers and schools to support remote instruction. Through the CARES funding, the department is building a learning object repository to provide all districts with high-quality, robust curriculum, materials, assessments, and resources that can easily be accessed by all teachers. And the goal here is to simply provide all teachers in the state the go-to place for standards-based resources so that we can provide high-quality, robust instruction for all students. The Learning Object Repository will be designed to interface with any learning management system that a district may utilize. This is a huge resource opportunity for all of our teachers and students to receive quality curriculum and materials. Additionally, the department is working closely with the Education Oversight Committee in the third year of the e-learning pilot project of allowing districts to utilize e-learning for weather makeup days. However, the pandemic has shifted the focus to include an emphasis in building high-quality digital learning environment, which takes significant preparation and resources. Interesting, the 2020 school year, the third year of the pilot, there are 42 districts, 4 charter schools have identified as e-learning districts. They have the infrastructure and resources to support full remote instruction. An additional 29 districts have been identified as readiness districts, and they have much of the infrastructure and resources in place, but they will use the e-learning. They will receive monitoring, mentoring, and coaching from the e-learning districts. The readiness districts will be divided in 6 cohorts and will receive year-long coaching from the e-learning districts in best practices, lessons learned, and pitfalls to avoid. Social emotional learning. A team across the state is developing resources to support teachers in embedding social emotional learning in pre-K to 12 academics. To accomplish this goal, the department has launched a website, and I'll send you the link to that with this information, where resources for teachers, parents, students, and support professionals can be found. Of particular interest, this site contains 20 lessons that teachers can readily incorporate into their instruction. And we know that academics, the content is extremely important, and we emphasize all of that, but it's important to know before we can get our students to some of that, to the point of understanding the content, we've got to help meet their social emotional needs. So additionally, Act 213 requires the department to select SEL screeners that can be used in a multi-tiered system of support for students, and currently a team is vetting those tools to provide to districts. And finally, the department is working with a team of school and district leaders to develop what we call priority standards in ELA and math. While all standards are important and are subject to be included on state assessments, there are standards that are critically important, as they must be mastered to be successful. Students must master them to be successful at the next level of work. The team is currently identifying those critical standards at each grade level, as we call them priority standards, and those standards that will serve as support. So in addition to the priority standards, the team is developing learning progressions, and the progressions will serve as a tool to teachers in demonstrating how students should progress through mastering the content and mastering standards at their current level, and signaling at what point the student is prepared for the next level of work, or if remediation is required before moving on. Learning progressions are not a pacing guide, but serve as a tool for teachers and students to analyze student work to determine the next level of work, and then to deepen the current level of mastery of where they are. So, Mr. Brennan, that's a report on support, some of the support that's being provided by the department to our school districts as we open this school year.
Dr. Mathis, thank you. It's obvious that the department is providing a great deal of support to our districts, particularly during this particular interesting time that we're in. But are there any questions for Dr. Mathis?
Chairman, I have one, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, is that Mr. Krabrowski?
It is.
Nice to see you, Mr. Krabrowski.
Good to see you. Thank you. Mr. Mathis, thank you for your report. I listened intently. What is the screener?
So a screener is an evaluation tool. It takes a few minutes to a teacher or counselor would administer with a student to determine social emotional well-being, how well they see themselves, how well they work with others, there's a piece of that that's actually on our kindergarten readiness assessment, how well they understand themselves, how they deal with conflict, how they deal with understand the feelings of others. So those screeners of how well they understand themselves and others. But it's a tiered system, so it could lead to more in the top tier of tier 3, where a student may need support with more mental health issues.
Are they guidance counselors, or what qualifications would a screener has, and who are they? School district employees, or how are they
Yes,
picked?
so it would be the screener. It will be selected by a team from the department, but it can simply be it's just a readiness indicator that a teacher or a counselor could administer with their class.
So the teacher could be the screener then, is that what you're saying?
They could use the screening tool, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. I just didn't know if that meant an additional employee or.
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay.
It's who we have on staff.
Thank you for the clarification.
Mm-hmm.
Was there
Mr.
another-
Chairman,
Mr. Bootson?
thank you. Dr. Mathis, how are you? Sounds like you've been pretty busy.
We have.
As I recall, there was a lot of discussion and concern back as schools were closing about the combination of what was being called the COVID slide with our good old buddy, the summer slide. And as a result of that, there was some decision that we got to do something about that. And the initial estimate, as I recall, was there about 49,000 students that we needed to get involved in that. That's where the summer learning program came from. Do I recall that correctly?
Yes, sir. That was the identification of kindergarten through third grade students who may not be ready for third grade, the end of third grade.
But we're also most likely to be the heavy-duty victims of COVID slide plus summer slide, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That number got cut back to 25,000 for funding reasons, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then we've wound up with about 3,000. So my question is, what's going to be the mechanism now to counter the impact of COVID slide plus summer slide? Or is that something we're just going to sort of take out of the regular school year? Not take out, but put into the regular school year?
Two things, Mr. Bootson. Remember that there were some students, and we're estimating maybe 15 to 20,000 students did receive some virtual summer support through.
Okay.
We're waiting on those numbers. The second thing is, I think Superintendent Smearman brought up a good point. As we move into the year and we assess these students on the diagnostic assessments to determine what the slide may be. And we've engaged with Education Analytics, who normally does our growth rating, to really analyze in the end how much of a slide there was. Was it the summer slide? Was the COVID slide? So once we get the diagnostic data from our pre-assessments, we can compare that to historical data and see what that slide really is. But the key at this point moving forward is, I think, championing the resources that we have left to provide intervention activities once we have the kids with us face-to-face or virtually. Because virtual instruction is very different moving into the fall as it was in March. So I think through, as Superintendent Smearman mentioned, the tutors, interventionists, or even intervention activities, that will enable us to actually have a more direct contact with those students that we didn't have a contact with.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anything else for Dr. Mathis?
Mr. Chair,
Dr.
Dr.
West.
Mathis, it's Dr. West. I just want to thank you very much for coordinating, for the department coordinating the supportive NIET that is helping our institutions of higher ed move forward with our trainings and to have our students prepared for the field and taking quite a bit of burden off of us. So that I just want to express my appreciation for that.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Mathis, thank you. Counselor, you're going to introduce Ms. Mack to us.
It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Kimberly Mack. Sorry, oriented already. Normally, John Payne would do that, but John is nursing his mother today. So I have the pleasure of introducing Kimberly Mack. She is now the Director of School Transformation. Prior to joining us, she was a principal at South Florence High School. She has had district roles. She's been an assistant principal. She's been a teacher. She's worked in rural, which is a word I really have a difficult time with, the country. She's worked in the country.
Okay.
And she is just been, in our brief time, unfortunately, this is honestly the first time I met her. I had no idea she was that tall because on the computer she seems sort of short. But this is Dr. Mack, and she's going to report on our 3 school districts.
Thank you.
Dr. Mack, welcome.
Greetings, and I am not a doctor as yet. So,
Oh, okay.
But thank you for pronouncing that over me.
Are
I
you
will
going to be one?
Yeah, I've been putting off a
Okay,
program for a couple of
okay.
years, but yes. But I do bring you greetings from the Office of School Transformation to State Board Educator or State Board and Ms. Spearman. I'm going to give you just some brief updates on Allendale, Florence 4, and Williamsburg, and I'm going to use my glasses. I can't see you when I have them on, so I just wanted to let you know that. Allendale School District has been holding task force meetings, and they had them on the 18th of June and the 15th of July, and they did that to establish their reopening plans. They held a parent orientation for Allendale Fairfax High School students. That's actually going to be the 24th through the 28th. And then during that time, their students will be able to pick up their devices, their textbooks, their schedules, and really get their minds wrapped around going back to school. Their website won a Reward of Excellence from the South Carolina chapter of the National Public Relations Association. And one of their 2020 grads, Javarius Humans, received the South Carolina Football Hall of Fame Bridge Builder Award. And Allendale also received $20,000 from the Column Lumber Company for culture and climate change initiatives in the district. They will have their LEAP days from August 24th through the 28th, 2020. Their first day of school is August 31st. And they will open with a hybrid or virtual model for parents to choose from. Moving into Florence 4, they also had task force meetings in July the 7th and the 14th, and they worked very hard to establish their reopening plans. They had their academic recovery camp from July 20th through the 7th of August, and they also hosted a COVID-19 drive-through testing on the 31st of July. Their LEAP days are August 3rd through the 7th. They will start school on the 17th of August, next week. They'll begin virtually, and then they will offer a hybrid option starting after Labor Day on the 8th. And I will say that the younger children will possibly be going for 4 days a week face-to-face because they feel like it's important to have that contact. In Williamsburg, they had 3 virtual community meetings on the 3rd of August, and they shared their district's reopening plans and addressed concerns and questions from their virtual audience. They had a virtual summer reading and math camp for K through 12 students from the 15th of July through the 12th of August, and they will be partnering with the MUSC in their Back to Business initiative to just assess their opening status. Their LEAP days are August 24th through the 28th. Their first day of school is September 8th, and they'll also offer hybrid and virtual models for their parents to choose. That completes my report.
Ms. Mack, thank you. Are there any questions from the board for Ms. Mack?
Thank you for being gracious.
Thank you. Thank you.
That won't last now. We'll have to pray for that.
I appreciate that.
Is Ms. Williams here? She's virtual? Ms. Williams?
I'm here. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair.
Good afternoon.
I'm just going to provide a very brief overview of the State Board's annual budget as of July 31st, 2020. Consistent with prior years, your budget is still $58,000 $34. That budget continues to be comprised of two components, an operational piece that covers per diem and travel-related expenditures for the state board members, and a second component that consists with covering the costs associated with teacher cases. Since the state is operating under a continuing resolution, we've made very little changes to the amounts that are associated with each component of that budget. There's $26,034 loaded in your budget to cover the travel-related costs, and $32,000 loaded to assist with the cost of those teacher cases. As of the end of the month of July, there were no expenditures incurred and paid from either component. As always, we will continue to monitor the expenditures as we go throughout the year to ensure that the amount loaded in each component is sufficient to fulfill its intended purposes. Mr. Chair, I'm available if there are any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Are there any questions? Hearing none, thank you, Ms. Williams. We enjoyed hearing your voice.
Thank you.
The chair is not aware of any other business to come before this board. I would remind the board members to get your travel forms and make sure that you get those to Noel before you leave today. Sarah, again, want to thank you for being here, and I know I called you Kathy when you're up there, so forgive me for doing that. But I know it's Sarah. So thank you for being here. Again, congratulations. Thank you. It's going to be an interesting year to be an ambassador under these conditions, but I think you got what it takes to figure it out.
I will definitely be figuring it out. Thank you so much.
I also want to thank the board members, those that are with us physically here today. And for those of you that are virtually, I just missed seeing all of you. So with that, we stand adjourned and enjoy the rest of your day.